So you've decided to be a DM in Dungeons and Dragons. It's a big responsibility, right? But let's put it this way. You'll be in charge of the players, the villains, the environments, the traps, the puzzles, the rules. You'll also have to entertain your players by acting out as NPCs. You'll also have to challenge your players. You've also got to make yourself a person who's indifferent to whether they live or die. Sometimes even killing players. This is something we try and avoid, but inevitably it will happen. And when it does, you can either say that's the end of the game for them, or you can create some kind of loophole that brings them back, which is what I recommend. So I think most people that think about being a dungeon master, they think, well, I need to read the player's handbook, I need to read the DM's guide, I need to read the monster manual, I need to understand all of these things. But the truth of the matter is, there's only a few things that you really need to know and be semi-comfortable with. Because anything you're not sure about, you can have behind your DM screen, you can have every piece of information that you want behind there, to a certain extent. So what do you really need to know to get started? Because when I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons back in 1994 maybe, so a long time ago, I didn't have any players, or I didn't have a DM, and the internet wasn't really a thing then, so a lot of the time I just sort of created adventures. That's what I did. I never actually got a chance to play them, but I created them and it was fun. I enjoyed that process, and as time went on, I finally did manage to get a D&D group. And none of the people that I had spoken to, because I met a few people at work and stuff, they had never played, or they had played briefly, but they'd never DM'd. So in their mind, they're like, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm not confident enough to actually run the game myself. So I said, yeah, I'll be the DM. And it wasn't a hard thing for me to decide on, because that's, for me, that is the best part of Dungeons and Dragons, is creating your world. Especially if, like me, you've always been interested in fantasy and adventure. And, I've created all these characters in my head for years that have never had any life breathed into them until now. So a good reason to be the DM is that you can control the game. You can literally say, okay, I'm going to run a game with new players, or players that have played before, which is sometimes better, but the purpose of this video, or this video series, is to be aimed towards newer players, but specifically newer DMs. And the way I'm looking at it is, if you are a new DM, that probably means you haven't got a group that you play with regularly. If you have a regular group, then being a DM is easy, because then you just say to people, alright, I'm going to give it a go. And, everyone wants to try it once you've got an established group, but that's a hard thing to come by. So the point I'm trying to make is, being the DM gives you more opportunity to play the game. So, if you go onto a discussion board, or, a group chat, Facebook, whatever, and you say, I'm looking for a game, I want to join and be a player, you'll probably get people come back and say, oh, well, we've already got a group going, but if there's a slot opens up, you can come along. Or it'll be like, it'll be a struggle to join a game, because most games have already got players. Whereas if you go on there and say, I'm a new DM, I want to run a campaign, I want to run an adventure, or I want to run a one-shot, you'll get tons of players saying, yeah, I'll join, yeah, I'll be part of that, whether it's online or offline. I've only ever played, in person. I don't intend to play online, but some people do enjoy that. So that is an avenue you can look down if you're really struggling to find players. But generally speaking, it's easier to get players if you're a DM than it is to get a DM if you're a player. So, I think it's just that for me, it's the best part. And also, another point of being a DM is that you will learn the game so much quicker than if you're just a player. If you're just a player, I shouldn't say just a player, but if you are a player, you focus on your character, what you can and can't do, and that's your world is encompassed by your creation, which it should be as a player. Whereas as a DM, you have to look up the rules, you have to know what's going on, you do have to do a bit of reading. But the amount of reading you need to do to actually get started is not as much as you think. You don't have to read through the whole book. So I've split this into a few different sort of parts of the rules that you're going to need to know to get started. And when I say you need to know these rules, it doesn't mean you have to know them off the top of your head. It means you need to know what information you need in front of you to get that game started. So the first thing you need to know about is character creation. Obviously, creating characters is one of the main parts of being a player in Dungeons & Dragons. So as a DM, naturally, you need to know what these players can and can't do in the world that you're creating. They don't have free reign. They can't do whatever they want. There are certain restrictions, certain limitations, which you need to be aware of. And they're not difficult. They're very straightforward things. The next thing is you need to understand how combat works. Now, whether you've got a board with tiles and you've got miniatures and it's a tabletop sort of variation, you're going to need to know where your monsters need to be. You're going to need to know where your players can be. And if you're doing theatre of the mind, which means you don't have a map or any miniatures, then you really need to know what the limitations are. Either way, having an understanding of the combat is massive, because every D&D game has combat in it. I've had sessions in my campaign where there's been hardly any fighting and it's been NPC discussions, puzzle solving, things like that. But there's always going to be fighting in Dungeons & Dragons. It's just part of it, and it's a great part of it. So you need to understand how that works. The next part is like an extension of combat, and that is magic. You need to know how players cast spells, what effects spells can and can't do, what monsters can do with spells, how they react to them, how they cast them. So you need to understand that concept. Once you understand how they do it, it's easy. It's only a couple of sentences that you need to know. But again, you can put this on your sheet, on your DM screen. What I do is I've got a DM screen and I've got sheets of paper with information on that I need, like how to cast a spell, how to use skill check, how to do all that, and I just stick it on the back of my DM screen. It's right in front of me. The other players don't even know it's there. The next thing after magic, you need to know skill checks. So we'll go into character creation, but you all have statistics, basically, or attributes they call them. So you've got like strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, sure there's another one, constitution, and you get a result of between 3 and 18. The higher the number, the better you are at that particular skill. So skill checks are something that you'll be doing a lot, whether they're attacking someone, whether you're trying to sneak through past some guards, whether you're trying to pick a lock, whether you're trying to dodge a cloud of poison, whether you've eaten something. You need to know whether you've got enough constitution to not get poisoned. Skill checks are a very large part of Dungeons and Dragons, so you need to understand those things as well. So it sounds like a lot, doesn't it? And it is a lot. It is, there's no denying it. It is a lot of information, but once you run through it a couple of times, it becomes second nature. And also, you're not limited by the rules either. You can bend them, you can change them, you can make them fit certain things. The idea is as a DM, your job is to create this world for your players to, push their characters into it. And your job is to make those players have fun while they do it. That's it. You need to create fun for your players. If your players are having fun, you'll be having fun. Guaranteed. If you're having fun, your players will have fun. So don't get too bogged down by the rules, but we'll go into that later on. So as a new DM, I recommend creating the characters yourself for your players. Now I know what you're thinking, my players are going to want their own characters. And yeah, generally, most players do want to make their own characters. But if you create the characters yourself, you make a handful of them and it's a selection, so they can choose which one they want. This way, they can just jump straight into the game. You don't have to do a session 0, you don't have to do any of that. You can just say, right, Monday at 7, come round. As soon as they get round, you can literally say, here we go, here's your characters, let's play the game. Most players will be fine with that, especially if it's a one-shot adventure, which, can be done in one session. It has a clear sort of ending, and yeah, you can get it done in one. And most people, they don't get too attached to characters if it's just a one-shot adventure, They don't even care if that character dies. I know that sounds a bit extreme, but because it's a one-shot, it has no reflection on anything after it. So if your character dies in a one-shot, it doesn't matter, because you're just going to make a new one anyway. So with that in mind, most players will be comfortable with that. You create, say you've got 4 players, create 6 characters and say, okay, choose one of these. And what you'll do, you'll make a good mix that fit all the kind of criteria, which we'll go into in shortly. But yeah, that's a good way to do it. Create the characters for them. Or there is another option, which for me is equally as good. But I've done both. I've let the players create a character for the one shot, and I've also created characters for one shot. I've never had anyone argue about it or anyone moan about it. They've all just gone, yep, that's fine, got on with it. So that'll be the same for you. And like I said before, if they do really kick off about it, then you have to really consider whether they're going to be in the group or not. I know it sounds really harsh, but you have to be, because the last thing you want is problem players. Because what problem players do is poison the enjoyment. Like, one apple can spoil a whole bunch of apples. I can't remember what the actual term is, but it's, you know what I mean. So if they're already kicking off before you've even played, then, maybe it's worth, seeking other options. But the option is, you say to them, this is the option. If you want me to run the game, this is how it's going to go. To start with, and you can explain to them that once you've done the one shot, then we'll do another one. As long as everyone gets on alright, we'll do another one where you create a character and we run a campaign. That's the option there. But don't be afraid to be authoritative with this stuff. You're the one running it. It's a good chance that they're coming to your house, or you've hired a hall, or a room in a gaming club, or there's a chance that you've created it. So you do get to be authoritative on it. If someone's a pain in the arse, you don't want them polluting your group. You know, you're better off playing with one less player. But anyway, that's probably a topic for another video, how to deal with problems. But we're not looking at that, we're looking at positives. So you've got your group, you've explained to them, this is what's happening, I'm going to create characters for you and you can select one and then we'll play the game. They'll all be like, sweet, let's do that. The other option is you can do a session 0, which is what they call like an introductory session. So it's a good way to put the feelers out, see how the people are, if they get on with each other or not, whatever. So you say to everyone, right, let's all come around mine, you know, or meet up at the pub or meet up at a gaming club or whatever, and say, okay, we're going to do a session 0, we get to meet each other and we'll create characters in this session. So they're in the understanding that there'll be no adventuring happening in this first session, but this first session is purely to create the characters and to meet each other. You know, you might have a group of people that have never met each other before, which is cool, you know, it really is, you know, getting people together. I love that side of it. So yeah, a session 0 is basically that. No adventuring, it's just you eat snacks and you talk about D&D, you talk about computer games, you talk about football if that's you're into, whatever you're into, you talk about that, get to know each other. So then you create characters and you're, as the DM, you're overseeing it all. So you can recommend what I'm going to recommend them when you get to it. So what does a party need to be a successful adventuring party? Now there's a question. It all depends on how strict you are with the rules. For me, I mean, I'm at a point where I can say if everyone wanted to be a wizard, I could create an adventure based around the fact that they're all wizards, you know. But for your general adventure, you want to tick all the boxes that a party can tick. So let's look at it. I mean, you've probably played MMOs and you've played computer games, you've read books and you've watched films. Normally there's people that are really good at fighting, and then there's people that ain't so good at fighting but are good at other things. And then you get people that do magic, and then you get people in between. So the point is tick all those boxes. So I'm going to continue now with the thought that you're creating the characters for your players. I think that's the best way to go, because then with this information, if they want to create their own characters, you can guide them in the right direction. So most parties, and I'm going to suggest 4 players is what you should target, especially if you're a new DM. 4 players is a good number because you can fill all the roles, you can control it easier, less people to deal with, the turns go quicker. So obviously the more players you have, the longer it takes for that particular player to get their turn. And the last thing you want is for them to be waiting 30-40 minutes per turn. It happens. That's the last thing you want. Because people will then get bored, get their phones out, they'll miss out what's going on, and they'll lose interest because there's too many. Whereas I find 4 is a good number because it's very quick. If you have 5, that's okay. 6 for me was pushing it. Like I did run an adventure and I had 6 players, and it was a push because it took so long to get to each person's turn. Every single person ended up getting bored. And that boredom is the curse. You don't want that. So yeah, and I'm going to continue the videos on the basis of 4 players, but you can change it around. So first of all, you're going to need like a frontliner. You're going to need like a frontliner. Someone who's big and strong, can fight well, and can take a lot of damage. You know, someone tough, someone heavily armoured, or someone very, very dexterous that can move around quickly and dodge, but can also dish out power. And if they get hit a few times, it doesn't matter. You need someone that can take the damage. A tank, as they call it in MMOs. So for that, I would recommend the first player to be a fighter. Because it's very straightforward class to play, but can be very interesting. You can wear any armour and you're really tough. And you can kick ass. So that would be your front line. He'll go in, he'll distract the enemies, he'll put down the hurt. Then you're going to need some backup. So the fighter is going to need some backup. And I recommend creating a rogue. Because rogues are good at all your skill stuff. So hiding, sneaking, picking locks, picking pockets, doing anything technical. They're good at hiding in the shadows, stabbing people in the back like assassins. They're really good as a backup because while the fighter is swinging the sword, the rogue is coming in behind them and surprising them. So player 2, create a rogue. Player 3, because of all this combat that's going on, you've got the fighter that's getting hit by enemies, you've got the rogue who's dancing around the edges, potentially in, danger zone to get hit. You need someone that can help, as in if they get injured, you can heal them. If they need advantages on rolls, you can cast spells on them. If you need to smite the enemy, you can. So the cleric is a perfect choice for that because they're tough, they can fight well, not as well as a fighter, but they can fight well, and they have spells to bolster everything, so they can help the whole party, which is what you need. And then the fourth, you need someone that can stand back a little bit and cause disorientation. They can do tricks, they can have raw firepower, blowing up rooms. You need a mage. For this, I recommend the sorcerer. Because you have the wizard, which is better, better spellcaster, but the sorcerer is easier to manage. So as a new player, a sorcerer is much easier than a wizard. For a new DM, a sorcerer is much easier because of the amount of spells and things like that, which we'll go into later. So the lineup should be fighter, rogue, cleric, and wizard or sorcerer. We're going for sorcerer. Now you say, what if I've got 5 players? What if I've got 6 players? What if I've got 3 players? Okay, if you have more, if you've ticked all those 4 boxes, any other character will help. It doesn't matter what if you pick a barbarian, it's going to be great for fighting. If you pick a warlock, it's going to really help the sorcerer. If you pick a bard, he's a mixture of a rogue and a wizard, and he's a bit of everything. So the options are there. Doesn't matter. So if you have more than 4, then any other role will fit with those 4. If you have less, it's best to focus on hitting power and moving around the dungeon. So your fighter and your rogue you really want, and then the cleric and the sorcerer, whichever, because people say, well, we need someone to heal, and it's not, and the cleric isn't just to heal, they do a lot more than that. But you can get away without having a healer as a DM by giving them potions, making them find healing potions, making them find scrolls, whatever. It just means you have to be more careful on their hit points, so you need to provide an option for them to heal if they don't have a healer. If they don't have any magic, it doesn't matter, but they do need a front line, so a fighter or a barbarian or a paladin would be a good choice. But yeah, so if you have less than 4, then go for things that can fight. If you have more than 4, then go for anything else. Doesn't matter, just add it in. So I think I've gone on about that enough. So yeah, we're going to create those things. So if you check the links, I'm going to put a video up on how to create a fighter, a rogue, a cleric and a sorcerer specifically for this series. So it'll be focused on how to create a character for beginners, what you as a DM need to know about this. And yeah, so check out those. I'll put those out as well. So that's probably all we need to talk about with character creation at the moment. And just keep in mind, our party for the adventure that we're writing is a fighter, rogue, cleric, and a sorcerer. So yeah, I think that's probably as much as we need to go into at the moment. Okay, so the next topic of discussion for this series is, do you write your own adventure or do you do a pre-made printed adventure? Now this is the thing, in the D&D starter set you get a pretty good adventure included in that, so it's worth getting that. If you don't want to shell out on all the books and all that, get the starter set because it gives you everything you need to play. For me personally, I prefer creating my own adventures purely for the fact that it gives me more control of what goes on. With pre-made adventures, there's a lot more reading involved, so you have to read each encounter, each scenario, and you have to make it fit in with your group. So if you like that sort of thing, then it's perfect for you because it tells you everything you need to know. Especially in the starter set, it basically is aimed towards new players and new DMs. So it will tell you what you need to say to the players, it will tell you what enemies are around, what they're good at, what they're bad at, what the players need to do, and it's all written out for you. Someone's done it for you. And a good book for that is this one here, Tales from the Yawning Portal. It's got a selection of adventures ranging from first level up to, I think, higher levels. I can't remember. I mean, I'll have to flick through it, but I don't want to do that. But basically, it's got a selection of adventures there that you can read them all and you can fit them into your group. But with this book, I find that most of the adventures will take a couple of sessions at least to get through. As we're focusing on doing a one-shot adventure, you can trim it down, but again, it means really knowing the material to be able to cut out what you need to cut out. But there are tons of them. So there's this book, and there's this one, and there's loads of others that have, one-shot adventures and all that. Do a bit of shopping if you want to buy some books. And the things with the books, like, they're really well put together. Like, they look really good. There's some amazing artwork in them, and yeah, it gives you all the maps and everything. Let's see if I can find a map to show you. There's a little one there, so it shows you the layout that you can then trace over or do a rough copy of and put on your table. And yeah, so it's got everything you need. However, I think, this is just my opinion, it might not be true, but my opinion is these books are made for people that play rather than people that have just started. That's my opinion, because there's a lot of fluff to read through. Creating your own adventure, you can literally do it room by room, which is what we will do in this series. We are going to create an adventure in this series. We can make it as big or as small as we want. We can make sure every character gets to shine, to do their own thing, and yeah, we can change it as we go, change it on the fly. If we need to add something in, if it's too easy, we can add more enemies, or we can toughen it up. If it's too hard, we can reduce that down. You're in control of everything. If you think this fight is going on for too long, the enemy's still got 20 hit points left, and you've been doing it for 20 minutes, and it don't seem like you're winning, just finish it quicker. The next impressive hit that a player does, let that be the one that kills them. You don't have to, just because an enemy has 30 hit points, doesn't mean you have to wait till all 30 hit points are gone before that enemy's dead. You can kill them quicker than that. You can make them run away. You can make them escape. if your monsters are getting the upper hand on the players, you can tone down the difficulty. You know, you can allow them to get some hits in. You can make the monster miss a few times. You know, you really can do whatever you want. And that's the beauty of making your own adventure, because it takes your mind away from that, well, this enemy has 30 hit points and this one has 15. So I can't move on until that's happened. You know, it sets that in your mind, I think. This is just me. And you feel like you can't miss anything out. Well, I can't miss that room out because there's that item in there. Or there's this in there, there's that in there. You know, it sets that kind of precedence in a way. Whereas creating your own, you know, you can cut out a room if you want, it don't matter. You just move something, change something for the story. Alright, say there's one room that you really want them to go in because it's cool, but they've gone the completely opposite way and you know you're not going to have time for them to go back. Just move that room to the next room so they encounter it. You know, we'll go more about all this sort of stuff later on. But the idea is you give the illusion of choice. I know that sounds really kind of hard, but this is like DM stuff, you know, it's not player stuff. So you give them the illusion of choice. So alright, say you've got the item is a magical sword that they need to find, and they've gone way off track, they're miles away from it, you're never going to get there. So don't be afraid to just move it, move an encounter, move a location, move an item. Just do it. And you know, say you've created 2 different areas, you know, it branches off into 2. One has got something in it, one's got something else in it, but you really want them to go into that room. Just say, would you like to go to the graveyard, or would you like to go to the you know, the ruined tavern? You might really want them to go to the graveyard because that's where the undead stuff is, which, you know, the item's in there. So they say, no, we're going to go to the ruined tavern, so you just swap it around. So either way, they're going to go where you want them to go. And again, we'll talk about this more, but this is just a little bit of insight. So create the illusion of choice. Very important. If players don't have choice, they get bored. They feel like they're being railroaded. You know, it's like, no matter what happens, this is going to happen. Ultimately, no matter what happens, the story you've set is going to happen, whatever route they take. So bear that in mind, that it doesn't have to be static. So yeah, that's the way. Always lead them to, always give the players choice, even if it's, you know, not really a choice. So that's something. So that discussion about pre-made adventures and creating your own. For me personally, I like to create my own, and that's what this video series will be about. So by the end of the series, you'll have your own adventure. You can either use exactly how I've set it out, or you can change it. Totally up to you. But yeah, that's that part. So I recommend creating your own, even if you don't know where to start. That's what this is all about. So yeah, that's part 1. Or is it part 2? I don't know, I lose track. I'm just talking and seeing how long it is for each video. I'm going to try and keep these videos to about sort of 20 minutes. And see how we go. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this bit of knowledge. Again, if you want to see my character creation videos, please like and subscribe, because they will be coming out. Yeah, the next video will either be part 2 of this, or it'll be one of the character creation videos. But anyway, see you soon and catch you later.